I can,
Oh,
there you are.
yes. Let me just get my pornographic pillows out of the way.
That's right. Get all set up.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I am doing okay. How are you?
Doing all right.
Yeah, as best you can, right? W
Yes.
which is why you and I have been, for the audience, you and I have been, messaging on social. I follow, Mask follows you. We all follow you from every account. Um, and we're just really proud of the work that you are doing and honored to know you. Um, I will let you introduce, your work, who you are, and then we'll just kind of get started talking about what we're here tonight, which is talking about Asian violence and how, as different community organizations such as MASC and any of the folks in our joint kind of communities, how we can all work together to fight this because, racism is the virus, right? And so that's what we need to be looking at and protecting our communities against. So without further ado, welcome, and tell everybody about yourself.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for those very, very kind words. I am honored that you were saying that about me. That's very, very nice of you. Well, I'm Asian Soph. You mentioned a couple of my accounts. I have this page. I also have a page called Mixed Made, Mixed underscore Made, and then I have a page Mixed Present as well too. And I am an activist in the community. I like to consider myself a activator. I'm very big into spreading education. I just put out an educational resource on the history of scapegoating in America towards Asians. Part one, part two. I literally just made it, spent all day making it. So you can check that out. But that's kind of what I do, try to make sure that we're spreading awareness and, with racism, and especially racism that is so deeply embedded within our country in every facet, right? How can we slowly start to break that cycle? And it starts with giving calls to action and education, having conversations, and just spreading as much knowledge as we can.
Yeah, and I see some of our mutual friends on. Hey, Athena. Oh, there's Charmaine. What's happening? And I know you were just on that podcast, right? Or you had a couple of podcasts that, I mean, you're just everywhere. And it's just unfortunate that it's happening and what's happening to the community. Just to let everybody know, if you don't know about MASC, if you're coming to us from Asian Self, just want to let you know MASC has been around for over 30 years, started by two moms who just wanted to see their, mixed race, interracial community seen and wanted to support. So MASC is about working within the community to educate those that identify as multiracial in an interracial marriage or partnership that has maybe a transracially adopted child. So we're here, and we also pride ourselves on being allies within the communities that encompass all of us, really. So I myself am African American and Mexican, and my husband is Korean. So, my children have, Asian heritage, the Korean heritage. And so when violence started happening, especially within this last administration, and then with COVID, it was really important for me to start talking about that with my children, because, not only do they hear, the things on the playground, right? It's on their social media. They're like TikTok, fans, so they're always there. So it's really important for us to have this discussion, and so we always want to bring in experts to kind of talk about it and tell us what's happening, what are they seeing. So what are you seeing, and when do you think it kind of started? I mean,
Uh,
it's the history is long, but in just in the recent kind of what is making news as you know right now.
yeah. One, thank you for calling me an expert. I don't necessarily feel I'm deserving of that, but thank you. But what we're seeing, I mean, we've even just today, right? We've seen a huge, at least I have, eruption of media coverage, posts from social media, a lot of Asians speaking out about just feeling that, it was almost a feeling of inevitability. And really, COVID has, so let's see, 2019, when it started, right? The back end of 2019, when COVID was starting to become a thing. And then we have, this, and whether or not people think it's justified because it was a virus that started in China or whatever it is, um, you know, for I mean, then the president using racist rhetoric at the time, calling it the Kung flu, the China virus. And that coupled with the fact that Asian Americans have a very long history of being scapegoated in this country. And it has started since Asians have been immigrating to this country in the 1800s. And if you want to check out a lot of things that I spotlighted, it's in an educational post that I just posted on all of my pages. There's a part one and a part two, but it really started then and it has not gone away. And the trend of seeing it happen comes in times of economic instability. There's an accusation that Asians are taking all the jobs, whether it's Asian Americans coming in as cheap labor or Asians abroad in Asia, this idea that Asians are always just taking all the jobs. And then we see it again when it comes to sickness, this idea that Asians are this dirty other because of the food that we eat or the way that we live or anything like that, the traditions that we have. And then also in times of war, we are seen as the enemy. And that is a white supremacist preserving whiteness situation because Asians are looked at as perpetual foreigners in this country. So whenever we see these waves coming back of Asians being scapegoated, it usually has something to do with one of these three major themes. And the thing that has really set off people from yesterday was the shooting in Atlanta. Um, a this white terrorist goes into three different spas, and they're trying to say that it's not a hate crime, but these are Asian spas, and they're trying to, it's this twisting of this narrative, which I think a lot of BIPOC people can relate to, of it's not a hate crime, it's not a racially motivated situation, but it's an Asian salon that he had frequented, and he's blaming Asian women for, his sexual addiction or whatever it was. And it brings in this now theme of the hypersexualization of Asian American women that has happened since Asian women have been coming to this country. And it's also not a coincidence that 68% of the hate crimes reported are reported by women as well. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
And I want to take a moment, and I think there's a couple of comments here on the page, prayers that go out. Um, let's take a moment
Mm-hmm.
and recognize the loss and just hold space in our hearts for during this time. So we'll just take a couple of cleansing breaths and a moment. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. I feel, like if we could just get grounded in this and really feel, you know, the extreme loss that is happening right now. And not only the loss, but the emotions that come around it, right? The anger, the sadness, the frustration, like why? Like why, how did we get here and how, because the immigrant story is a long one, right? And um, there's a lot of things that go into that, and and we do see this as just a push for white supremacy to remain, in power. And so, what can we do to help, communities currently? Right now within the Asian community is where we're seeing, yes, Black Lives Matter, and yes, we can do that all concurrently. There's not, um, one or another direction that is, we can do both and hold space for many things. And right now we're asking, how can we support the Asian community and what can folks do? You talked about call to action and education. Some of the education that you mentioned is up on your pages, and we'll remind folks of how to find you. But let's talk about call to actions,
Hmm.
and maybe a couple of resource pages that you and I just shared recently, and where folks can do some work and and be part of the solution wherever they are, whether it's, joining a protest, whether it's, maybe you want to send money to organizations that are doing the work, or just maybe it's checking your neighbor who might, be talking, have racist language. So there's things that any of us can do at whatever comfort level we can. So let's talk about. Oh, yes, definitely. The sheriff, if folks are, Mrs. ZL Smith shares that the sheriff dismissing it as a bad day. Yes, that was definitely in my timeline today. And which is, furthers the need to really shift the conversation from, um, from the person perpetrating the racial violence, the terrorist, to putting the focus on where it needs to be, on the victims that have lost their lives and those that are fighting to help prevent this. So let's talk about call to actions. What do you suggest for folks, um, how they could come in?
Yeah. Um, I mean, there is a lot of like other educational things that you could do. There's books that you could read. I do want to shout out Minor Feelings by Kathy Hong Park and or Park Hong. I might have gotten that wrong. And The Making of Asian America by Erica Lee. Uh, you can also share these posts on social media. ihollaback.org has a free guide on strategically de-escalating hate in public. It's a free guide. Um, and honestly, just speaking up if you see something, you can go to stopaapihate.org and standagainst-hate.org. The Asian American Collective also has a petition that you can sign to push for more media coverage. There is also a GoFundMe that you could donate to. It is GoFundMe/support the cause against anti-Asian violence. And there's dashes in between all those words. And if you don't necessarily have money that you could donate your time and escort seniors in Chinatown or your local Asian community. I do know for a fact Oakland Chinatown has a service for that right now. So there's that too. And there's a crisis hotline. You can go to 1-800-TALK or text Connect to 741-741. So those are just a couple ways to, reporting the hate crimes, education, learning how to de-escalate, but also amplifying the stories and the voices is important. But also keep in mind that um, you usually won't see anyone in the AAPI community sharing the actual videos of what happens because they're just so traumatizing to watch, watching people get donkey kicked at a bus stop or lit on fire or pushed down or anything like that. It's hard, especially if any of us have had our own incidents where our family members have been harassed. So just being mindful of that, but engaging on the hashtag and checking out the posts. Hate is a virus is another great way to help amplify. That is the main hashtag all of us are using. Hate is a virus, or Stop Asian Hate. Um, you can also look at the hashtag AAPI too. If you hear of any actions happening, protests or anything like that, showing up and donating some of your time there is also a great way to help continue to amplify the voices and draw attention. Typically, Asian Americans have been the invisible minority and not taken seriously when it comes to racism and hate. So the more we can get people to show up for us, and it definitely helps, again, to share those stories and make this issue as important as it needs to be.
Now, why do you think it's the invisible minority, the model minority? Where do you think that stems from?
Well, the
And
model
or
minority,
how can folks push back from that as well?
yeah. Well, one, if you don't know what the model minority myth is, there's a lot available even on social media about that. So just educating yourself on what that is. But the model minority myth, at the end of the day, was started around the 1960s and around like the civil rights era and stuff like that. And it's basically used to, in a way, it's just a white supremacist tool essentially to make Asians seem like they're being uplifted, so no other BIPOC people can complain about the circumstances that they are in, because if Asians can be successful, which is, it's called a myth because the wealth gap in the AAPI community is very disproportionate and disparaging, more than any other racial group, and it's basically just feeding off stereotypes that aren't really true, and it just feeds this idea that if BIPOC people can fight amongst each other, then white supremacy can still be upheld, and we don't have to address the issue that is racism.
But I think it also reinforces to the Asian community of, you know, let's let's assimilate into what is considered, correct behavior or okay behavior, or into what is American to whatever society is saying. But it's a way to silence, and it's a way to say, as like a code of honor, but really it's not. It's really just um, I mean, we have to fight back and push back on that because it silences and it does, folks don't want to speak out
Mm-hmm.
when violence like this does occur. One of the things that you mentioned about media and sharing, I think what folks, did today and push back what the sheriff was saying was so important because sure, media is great to get, but the correct narrative needs to be, told. And so when we do see this kind of narrative pushed where it's this guy had the bad day, no, we need to push back and change the narrative and say, no, the focus is not on him. And that's where we need
Yeah.
to be. Um,
I do want to add one more
yeah.
thing. When it comes to reporting hate crimes, it's very important at the same time that we're not calling for more police or more policing.
Mm.
Because, despite this narrative that society does try to create that Asians don't speak out and don't speak up, we have been in the fight for fighting against racism for a long time. There's a very long history of it. And, just to keep in mind our other BIPOC allies and stuff, especially the Black community, not calling on for more policing, since historically the police have not also been helpful for us either. I mean, the Chinese massacre of 1871, the mob was incited by a policeman, and that led to the death of 17 to 20 Chinese people and no convictions. So we have that history within us as well, too.
That's a great point to be mindful. Now, this is, something that I dealt with with George Floyd and being, trying to support during, Black Lives Matter. I There was a part of me that struggled with being mixed with Black. I always wondered if I was able to speak up at, am I black enough for that, for that? And so something that I struggled with, and because this is a multiracial page, we want to, what do you say to folks that maybe have mixed ancestry, mixed Asian? Um, um, what do you say to them when they, maybe perhaps this is their first time kind of experiencing that?
Yeah.
Well, anybody real, yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, being a mixed Asian myself, I can relate to that 100% of that feeling. And there's a lot of people who will look to discredit you. I've heard that before. Well, Sophie, you're half white, so like, what are you complaining about? You know what I mean?
I do.
And at the end of the day, people will look to discredit so they don't have to do the work of solving the problem. And it's easier said than done to say, to kind of just do it outside of those voices. But I can tell you, like, finding those multiracial communities like MASC, like my pages, like Mixed in America, or these other pages that are just dedicated to mixed folks, you will find people who are doing the work of speaking out, and doing the work of speaking out, and maybe that can help inspire you and help you find more community, and within that find the courage to, you know to say it, even if you have those voices saying that you shouldn't be saying anything. And I do want to say, to go back to your point about the invisible minority, and the model minority myth, it plays up on this idea. It really plays up on the immigrant mentality, you know. And I've been lucky to come to California and find fourth generation Asians, which I had never grown up around, which I think is a blessing. But, you know, really playing up on this idea that just keep your head down. This is the price you pay for being here.
Mm,
And it's so important for us as a community, even if we have parents who immigrated here. I mean, my father immigrated here from Japan. To say, like, we have a right to still be treated with dignity and not be silenced when we're being hurt and when we're afraid. And that is, excuse me, I'm getting a little emotional, but
oh,
that is
yeah.
how the community is feeling right now. So,
Mm,
so what you can do, amplify the stories, check in on your AAPI friends and your AAPI family, order takeout from your local Asian restaurants, and don't be silent. You can also donate to Butterfly. It is an Asian and migrant sex worker network. You can go to butterflysw.org/donate to help decrease the violence that Asian and migrant sex workers face.
I love you. You're the best. You
Thank
okay?
you. I will be okay, yes.
I know. I know. It's yeah, it's a lot of weight. And I thank you for trusting us with your vulnerability, and I see lots of hugs and claps and hearts on the page. You got a lot of folks who care about you and really want to see some stuff. We will be in City Hall tomorrow, hoping to, look around and see if there's anything, any place we can support. Please, folks, I love you too, Athena. I see you, girl. Um, I think that we'll continue to have conversations like this. And if you were ever challenged to think that you are an expert, for the last 20 or so minutes, you just were bam, bam, bam. So I don't want to hear that again. Um,
Thank you.
you, the amount of information that you shared with us, look at this, your wealth of knowledge, absolutely. We need to work together, and that's what MASC is here to say. We're here. We'd like to support. We want to stand up. I loved all the resources that you dropped. And if folks can go to your page just in case they didn't have a pen, pencil handy, and follow and find out all the stuff that you are sharing. Tell them your pages once again.
So this page is more of my personal page. It's Asian Soph, Asian underscore Soph. That's usually what I go by on everything. Mixed present, and mixed made. It's mixed underscore made. You can find all of my stuff on there, and reach out if you have any questions. And if you also are a mixed race Asian or mixed race anybody looking to speak out and get into activism, I promise you there are lots of us who are mixed who are in activism. I am friends with a large network of them, Sonia included. And there's a lot of us, and there's community for you with us, if you need anything.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And giving you hugs and here to support. And we will continue to amplify your work as well. So thank you. We encourage everybody to join us and continue to follow along. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, one last thing. The shirt I'm wearing, it's from
Yes,
Asian
talk to me.
American. Yeah, it's from Asian American Girl Club. When I bought this, it was to support the Black Lives Matter movement. But they always have shirts that are supporting a cause. So just check them out on Instagram, Asian American Girl Club. They have lots of different clothes. So.
Perfect. I'm going to
Mhm.
look out for them as well. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
one.